I'd like to introduce Jen Burlingham from Norfolk County Council. We heard this morning from Charlotte Palmer, who is part of the West Norfolk cluster group Nature Network, and that ties in quite nicely with what Jen's doing with the strategy for Norfolk. So Jen, over to you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I will say I do work for Suffolk County Council as well, so it is a joint Norfolk and Suffolk nature recovery partnership. So it's across the two counties, and that's been a really big emphasis on the work that we've done as well, that collaboration. And we are in a unique position that we've created the local nature recovery strategies across that area. So what I wanted to do today was to kind of introduce a little bit about what we've done and then what's next, because we are very excitingly publishing our strategies this week. So fingers crossed nothing goes wrong in the next 2 days, but we will actually have our strategies available for everybody to use. So I spoke this time last year as well, and we were in development phase. We hadn't got there yet. So it's come a long way in a year. So just to give a little bit of an overview on what the local nature recovery strategy is, I'm sure there's lots of you who are very aware. But I just wanted to make sure everyone was at the same point. They are a tool, basically. So they are a tool for helping nature recover, so for habitats and for species. And basically, there's something that's happening across all of England. So there'll be 48 local nature recovery strategies by the time everyone is complete. They were introduced by the Environment Act in 2021. And they are part of statutory law now. So we're not the first ones to finalise. There have been a few that are already published, but we are in a really good position that probably about another 20 will be completed by the end of this calendar year as well. So we want to make sure we're really thinking about where nature recovery can happen in the best place with the best strategic significance. My button doesn't work now. There we go. So when I talk about the LNRS, I always think about these 3 words just as a way to really kind of emphasise what's going on. And it's about opportunity, it's about ambition, it's about potential. So we are thinking about this being an opportunity map. We're not trying to tell everybody what to do. It's about what could happen if you want to be involved in nature recovery. It's what's going to be best for that piece of land. We know we're ambitious because we know we need to make a change. We've spoken about that this morning already, I'm sure. Lots and lots of thinking about what's best for nature and how we can align with planning policies, how we can think about agriculture going forward as well. We want to make sure that we're really aligning with everybody. And we've also got that potential. We think there's a big amount of change that can happen as we go forward. And we want to make sure that's really linked into funding possibilities as well. So that's where we're coming from. So what we've done over the past sort of nearly 3 years now is that we've created some outputs, and they are basically maps and a document. So we've already mapped what's called the APIB, so that's what's already of importance for biodiversity across the region, and I always think of it as our baseline. So these are our designated sites, these are things like our SSSIs, and it's given us that idea of actually what have we got in the region that we need to think about expanding and restoring. We've also thought about species and habitats that are actually in the area as well. So what do we need to focus on? We've had to prioritise. We'd love to do everything, but we need to think about what's going to have the most impact. So to do that, we then create maps of where these things can happen. And that's called the ACB layer. There's lots of lovely acronyms within the strategies. And it's where things could become of potential of biodiversity. So we do have these maps available. As I say, we're publishing on Friday, but we do have them available today for you to view. So we're on the stand next to the toilets, which is a good place to be. Everyone walks past us, but you can come and have a view on your land if you've got land or your area as well, and you can kind of see what we're thinking about. So overall, we have 10 ambitions that have come through from the development of the document. The document is a massive piece of work. It's 350 pages, essentially, of this strategy that we want everyone to use. So we're trying to think about what's those 10 aims, what are the 10 things that we really want to emphasise and put forward to people. And you can see them on the screen at the moment, but it's all about enhancing and creating new habitats. It's about connection. It's about those species and supporting our sustainable farmers and land managers. We're about restoring rivers and wetlands and thinking about nature-based solutions, and also enhancing our coastal habitats. As you can see there, we're not just thinking about coastal areas or woodland as well. We're trying to think about every single habitat type across the region and even into our towns and cities as well, so how we can integrate. We also want to think about the people and how we can empower everybody to be involved in nature recovery. And then the last one of the most important as well, is our co-benefits. So how does nature actually give us those economic, those health benefits as well, and thinking about things like links into tourism. So we use, again, some wording about measures. So we talk about what measures can be employed. And the measure in terms of the local nature recovery strategy are those actions, so those things that happen on the ground. So I've just put a few examples up on the screen at the moment. This is what we're trying to talk about, what could happen where. So let's identify a piece of land where we could maybe create a new orchard, or let's think about what do we need to remove from that land as well to make it better for nature. So those measures and those actions are detailed within the strategy. So it gives everyone that tool and that piece of information to refer to. Our opportunities, as we said, are not just nature-based. We do have those wider environmental benefits and also our co-benefits. So we have 10 of each. We've tried to keep the numbers nice and easy, but I'll just briefly go through there. Our environmental benefits, thinking about air quality, thinking about capturing carbon, so we mentioned carbon earlier as well, all of our different flood mitigation, climate change resilience, and think about pollination and soil health as well. So what we've done through the strategy is identified where those areas and those measures could be linked into these benefits. The wider environmental benefits are, as their name suggests, for the environment. We also have our co-benefits, so those that are more for people. And those are things like cooling our urban areas, linking into pollination and food production as well. And then very importantly, things like our physical and mental well-being. So really emphasising on the difference that nature can make. And I think everyone in this room has probably experienced the benefits of nature, and we can hopefully talk to other people about it as well. But there's a lot going on within the strategy. It's not just the map, it's not just a list of places for things to happen, it's talking about how this can have a really big impact. And that's one of the reasons why it's taken a long time to develop, and it's been a really big process and a massive collaborative process to get to this point as well. So hopefully this is just a very brief overview of the timeline as well. So as I said, we started in October 2023 to actually start to think about how this was going to work. I wasn't involved in the project at that point. I came in April 2024, so there was a really good basis for me to work on, and the partnership had already been established. So the Norfolk and Suffolk Nature Recovery Partnership now has approximately 250 to 300 members and about 85 different organisations working together. It started with working with the UEA and thinking about creating the the Natural Capital Compendium. So that work and that collaboration across the two counties really gave a good basis for the partnership. We know nature doesn't care about the boundaries. It doesn't worry about the fact you've got the River Waveney going through the middle. So we didn't either. We're going to work together. As we've gone through this process, we have created the document. We've been through a lot of governance processes and approvals. We've had to make sure we've got what's called our supporting authorities on board, so all the district and borough councils, and then our partners in the arm's length bodies, so Natural England, Environment Agency and Forestry Commission. Everyone's had to look at the document, everyone's had to approve and make their changes. We then went out to public consultation this year as well, so hopefully some of you might have been involved in that, where we actually showed what we'd created and we showed the mapping. We got people to say, yes, we agree with this, no, we don't, you need to change this. And we've done that. So we've demonstrated that change, we've listened to everybody and we've made those changes. And as I said, we are now at that point where we've actually sent our document to the Secretary of State last week, and we're ready to publish on Friday for you all to enjoy and take on board all of the different aspects. So just to show you some of that, as we went through that engagement and consultation process, we did produce a public consultation report so you can dive in and see what we changed and what we listened to. And we used a huge amount of people and a huge amount of collaboration to actually achieve that as well. So this is just a bit of a recognition and a bit of a thank you to everybody who's been involved as part of that consultation process with publicising and helping us to talk to everybody. And you can see again on the next slide just where it took place and where our respondents came from. So we're trying to show that we're not just working with those experts. We are taking on board opinions and the actual kind of inputs of everybody that we possibly can. We know we haven't reached everybody. We know there's gaps. We know that there's more we want to do as part of the next steps. But hopefully here you can see that we did reach a really good proportion of the two counties, so across Norfolk and Suffolk. And a little bit beyond as well, we had some Cambridge and some Essex interlopers that came in as well. And this was just to show you again the agreement. So we're quite proud of this data, that we've got a really good consensus in terms of what we've done. So those species that we're working with, the habitats, the mapping that we've done, and what we've created, we know that it's something that hopefully can be worked with, can talk to the people of the county, and actually be something that's useful. So this is the important bit. I know we're in the mapping and technology section of the day. So, just to show you the map and to think about actually what it means. So the overall product is called the Local Habitat Map, and it comprises of a few different layers. So it's being hosted on an ArcGIS program, and there's lots and lots of kind of user-friendly aspects with that as well, and we're trying to work with more engaging tools as we go forward as well, to make it something that everybody can use. But what you can see on the two maps at the moment is that initial layer, so that area of particular importance for biodiversity. So you can see we've got a huge amount around the Brecks, around the Broads, around the Norfolk coast as well, and these are these areas such as Triple SIs, county wildlife sites, our Ramsar sites, our irreplaceable habitat. And this is our baseline. This is what's amazing about Norfolk and Suffolk already, what's designated, and what we could maybe work from. So what we did is we did that. We looked at all of this area and we thought about what's going to be better. How do we make it more, bigger, better, and more connected to link into the Lawton principles? And to do that, we then created our strategic areas. So we've used a lot of data. We've used a lot of background information to create this, and if you want to know more, please do come and talk to us on the stand, and Emily, who's our geospatial expert, can talk you through this phase. But this is all of the information that we've taken on board and we've sort of amalgamated to then say, actually, where's our strategic areas? Where are those opportunities for nature going to have the best impact? And you can see we managed to kind of make this about 40% of the whole of the two counties together. So everything marked in blue is kind of where we thought, okay, this is where it could work really well. This could be a good opportunity. We've also used the most up-to-date data to do that as well. So all through the process, we've tried to make sure we've used the newly released data like the peat map, the Natural England priority habitat inventories as well. So everything is being kept as up to date as possible, because we know this map has to be used for a few years as we go forward into the next phase. So from that data, we then said, okay, we need to really identify our areas that could become of importance. And that's what this next layer is as well. So everything that you can see in green across the two counties are areas where we have mapped measures. So this is where we think, okay, if you want to do something with woodland, it could happen here. If you want to do some salt marsh restoration or coastal realignment, for example, these are the areas where it could work. And we can dive into that further if I show you where we are standing at the moment. I kind of picked the site. You can see the showground, but you can see that every single different colour on this map represents a different type of habitat measure. So it could be woodland restoration, it could be something to do with the wetland, it could be something to do with ponds, but every single different area means a different type of habitat that can be used and worked on. And that's because we can then think about actually how we can use this for things like BNG, for landscape recovery projects, and actually sort of start to define where we can go with nature recovery. So these are our mapping toolkits. And some of the things we're thinking about, as I said, we wanted to talk about the next steps and what we want to do in the future. We need to continue to engage with everybody. We need to think about how everyone's going to use this. So we're going to have more and more story maps and guides. We want to make it really user-friendly, to have dashboards. So if you're a parish councillor, you can pick out your parish and it will tell you what the measures are. You can also use the map yourself. If you're a landowner, you can put your own area on there. You can integrate it with your own layers. So there's lots and lots of kind of user-friendly things coming forward. And again, if you'd like to know more about those, please do come and talk to us on the stand. So just to really focus in on what we want to do next and where we want to start using this. I won't read all these out, but these are our kind of aims and our really strong kind of messages that we want to get through. So how we're going to do this now, that's the next question, is what do we do? How do we actually start to make this a reality? And we are getting some guidance. So DEFRA are now saying, well, this is the next phase. So we are what's called responsible authorities. So the councils of Norfolk and Suffolk County Council were appointed as responsible authorities, which means we have the role to deliver. So now, as we move into this next phase, it's about, as we say, kind of implementing and making this happen. So we have 4 key roles. One is to continue to lead and convene the delivery partnership. So that's been my role since the beginning. And we've already had that kind of focus of getting everybody together, getting the stakeholders in the rooms together, making sure we're having the right conversations. And that will continue. It will slightly evolve it. We'll start to think about different groups maybe, but that's where we've sort of got a really good starting base. We also need to make sure that local plans and local decision making uses the LNRS. So in terms of the wording, planners need to have regard to the LNRS, and or then this will change to take account of the LNRS as the guidance changes. So this means that it's a material consideration. So as a planning application goes through, a planner needs to look at the mapping and to sort of see what it's telling you, and then how they can embed that into the decision making. Just to be really clear, the LNRS doesn't infer a protection on any piece of land. Just because it's highlighted in the LNRS doesn't mean that things can't happen there. It's about high quality planning and making sure that we're taking into account nature recovery as well. We have to be quite careful that everybody looking at the map doesn't suddenly think, okay, all of this area is going to be protected and no works will happen on there. But we need to work really closely with our colleagues to ensure that that's happening at a high quality. We also need to think about new projects. Now, there's so many amazing projects already happening across the region, but we need to think about new projects that can come through, or how can we make sure that the right people are aligning with each other. And my role will be what I think of as like a golden thread. I can't go to every project and work on it, but I can make sure that people are talking to each other in their neighbouring areas, or what are the benefits? How can we make this project bigger? How can we sort of learn from what other people are doing as well? And that's where my role seems to sit. And then we have to monitor and report as well. So we have to say if it's a success. We don't quite know how that's going to look yet, but at some point we will need to review the LNRS. That's potentially going to be in about 3 years, and we need to say, okay, it's been successful, this has happened in that time frame, or maybe this is an area we need to work on more. So as I say, the guidance is starting to come through, and as it develops more, we will continue to work on that. We tried to get a little bit ahead of the game to make sure that we were really, as a partnership and as a responsible authorities, thinking about our next steps earlier in the process. So in July of this year, we had a conference with some of our key stakeholders, and we started to really think about what was the vision that we had, what did we want to achieve across this group, and where are our priorities going to lie. How can we make sure that we're actually thinking about the actions and thinking about those species and habitat areas we've thought about? How can we ensure that work happens there? We started to also think about, what does a mapping program look like? What does a monitoring program look like? What are the factors? And how can we take that forward? So as I said, we've also wanted to think about our structure and who's going to be involved and who do we need to talk to more. So that's what we've started to think about. And what my role will start to look for the next phases as well. Again, I won't read all these out, but these are the key points that have come through from DEFRA on those 4 areas of why they've been highlighted. So you can see we've got this strong partnerships, fostering collaboration and leverage diverse cross-sector expertise, integration, making sure we've got opportunities being collected, tracking those activities and reporting, making sure that we actually know how we're contributing to national targets, and really just thinking about how everything's strategically coordinated. So that's our focus for the next steps. This is trying to achieve this area. And just to show how I'm starting to think about that, because obviously this isn't finalised yet, this is my thinkings at this point. And we've already had the steering group through this process, so we've had our key stakeholders really helping to give expertise and advice. And we want to develop that further, but we also want to make sure we're really capturing lots of stakeholders. So we have our planners and our developers, we have youth groups in there, we have community groups. We think about our protected landscapes, our ENGO colleagues as well. And then our infrastructure, so thinking about water, how important water is going to be. Making sure we've got that mapping and monitoring, and also our health and wellbeing aspects in there too. So as I say, with so many projects already happening, we want to make sure they're all captured and that they're all really focused on as well. And we have some really, really good relationships with our protected landscapes teams, with our landscape recovery, and also with community groups. Some of them are in the room today as well. We've also got a focus on economic value of nature and how do we link this into things like tourism and regenerative processes there as well. So I suppose what I'm trying to say is we want to talk to everybody. If I haven't spoken to you before, please do come and talk to us, because we want you to be involved with the LNRS as we go forward, and making it a really big success. So just thank you very much for listening. And as I say, we are here. We are open to collaboration. We're open to ideas, and I think we might even have time for questions. We've been told.
Well, not
Maybe.
quite.
Not quite. Okay, that's fine.
But you will be about, Jen, I'm sure.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
please do come and see Jen. Thank you very much for sharing with us the last 3 years of work we've gone into, and look forward to seeing the report on Friday.
Thank you very much.
Please.